Shalom Kulam, welcome everybody. We're starting Hilchot Avodah Zarah, Perek Yud Bet, the 12th chapter and the final chapter of the laws of idolatry. Ein megalhin pe'atei harosh. We may not shave the corners of the head. Kmo shehayu osin ovdei Avodah Zarah v'kumrehen, as the worshippers of idolatry and their priests would do. Shene'emar, as the verse states, Lo takifu pe'at roshchem. You shall not round the corners of your head. And one is liable for punishment for each corner. Therefore, the one who shaves both of his temples, even if he did it at one time and with one warning, he receives 2 lashes. אחד המגלח הפאות בלבד ומניח שיער כל הראש. Whether one shaves only the corners and leaves the hair of the whole head, or ואחד המגלח כל הראש כאחד, or he shaves the entire head at once. הואיל וגילח הפאות, since he shaved the corners of his head, לוקה, he receives the punishment of lashes. במדברים אמורים, in which case are we talking? Be'ish ha'megalech, the person who shaves. Aval ha'ish ha'mitgalech, but the person who is being shaved. Enu lokeh ela imken si'a lemegalech. He doesn't receive lashes unless he assisted the person shaving. V'megalech et ha'katan lokeh, and one who shaves a minor receives lashes. Ha'isha shegilha pe'at rosh ha'ish, a woman who shaved the corner of a man's head, o shenit galha, or who was shaved. Ptura, she's exempt from punishment. Shene'emar, as the verse states, lo takifu pe'at roshchem v'lo tashchit et pe'at zkanecha. It says you should not round the corners of your head, but it continues and says, and you shall not destroy the corners of your beard. Kol sheyeshno beval tashchit yeshno beval takif. Anybody who's included in the prohibition against destruction of the hair is also included in the prohibition against rounding the head. V'isha ena beval tashchit, lefi she'en la zakan, and a woman is not liable for the prohibition of destruction because she does not have a beard to destroy. Lefika ha'avadim, therefore male slaves, Ho'il v'yesh lahen zakan asurin v'hakafa. Since they have a beard, they're prohibited in rounding. And here's the time to mention, as I believe we may have mentioned before, that avadim, slaves, in halacha, have the status sort of like women. They're obligated like women are in most obligations, even though they're not Jewish. Kol hamitzvot lo ta'aseh shebetorah. All of the negative prohibitions in the Torah. Ehad anashim, ehad nashim hayavim. Both men and women are obligated in them. Chutz mi bal takif, except for not rounding the head. Uval tashchit, and not destroying the beard. Uval yitameh kohen lemetim, and that a priest not be defiled for the dead. V'chol mitzvat aseh shehi mizman lezman ve'enat hadira, and any positive commandment which is occasional but not frequent, nashim pturot, women are exempt from them. Chutz mikiddush hayom, except for the sanctification of the day on Shabbat, ve'achilat matzah b'leila Pesach, and eating matzah on the night of Passover, ve'achilat Pesach v'shchitato, and eating the Passover offering and its slaughter, the hakel, and the assembly of the congregation during the Yovel, the simcha, and rejoicing, shehanashim hayavot. For all of these, women are obligated in. Tumtum v'androginos. Tumtum, which is a person of undefined sexual characteristics, and an androgynos, which is a person who has both male and female sexual characteristics. Harahin safek, they're considered doubtful with respect to the law. Notnin alehen chumrei haish vechumrei haisha bechol makom. They're always given the stringencies of a man and of a woman. V'hayavim bekol, and they are obligated in all the commandments. V'im avru enan lokin, but if they transgressed, they do not receive lashes because of their doubtful status. Af al pi shehaisha muteret legaleach peat rosha, even though a woman is permitted to shave the corners of her own head. Arehi asura legaleach peat rosh hazachar, she's forbidden to shave the corner of the head of a man's head. Vafilu katan, even a minor. Asula legaleach lo, it's forbidden for her to shave him. Upe'az zo shemanihim betzeda, and the corner which is left at the temple of the head, lo natnu bah hachamim shi'or, the sages did not establish a size for that. V'shamanu mizkenenu she'eno maniach pachot me-40 se'arot, and we heard from our elders that one does not leave less than 40 hairs. Umutar lilkot pe'ot b'misparayim, but it's permitted to trim the corners with scissors. Lo ne'esar ela ashchata shel ta'ar. Only the destruction by razor is forbidden. Derech kumrei avodah zara haya la'ashchit zkanam. It was the way of the priests of idolatry to destroy their beard. Lefikach asra Torah la'ashchit azakan. Therefore, the Torah forbade destroying the beard. V'hamesh pe'ot yeshbo, and there's 5 corners to the beard. Lehi elyon v'lehi tachton miyamin, the upper and lower cheek on the right. V'lehi elyon v'lehi tachton mismol, and similarly on the left side. V'shibol tazakan, and the chin of the beard. V'lokeh al kol pe'ah u'pe'ah, and for each and every corner he's punished. V'im netalan kulan ka'ahat lokeh hamesh, and if he removed them all at once, he receives 5 lashes, because they're 5 separate prohibitions. Ve'enu hayav ad sheyigalchenu b'ta'ar, and as we said, he's not liable until he shaves it with a razor. Shene'emar, as the verse says, v'lo tashchit et pe'at zkanecha, you shall not destroy the corner of your beard. Giloach sheyesh bo ashchata, that refers to a shaving which destroys. Lefikach im gilach zkano b'misparayim patur. Therefore, if he shaved his beard with scissors, he's exempt from punishment. Ve'ena mitgaleach lokeh ad shisayeah, and the one who is being shaved is not liable until he is not punished by lashes unless he helps. V'isha, and a woman, muteret lashchit zgana, she's allowed to destroy her beard with a razor, im hayala se'ar zakan, if she happened to have beard hair. V'im hishchita zakan ha'ish p'tura, and if she destroyed the beard of a man, she's exempt from punishment. Hasafam, the mustache. Mutar legalho b'ta'ar, it's permitted to shave it with a razor. V'hu hase'ar she'al gabeh hasafa ha'elyona, and the mustache we're referring to is that hair which is on the upper lip. V'chen hase'ar ha'meduldal min hasafa ha'tachtona, likewise, that hair which is underneath the lower lip, bit above the chin, right under the lip. V'afal pi shehu mutar, but even though it's permitted to do that, lo nahagu Yisrael lashchito ela legalech ktsato. Even though it's permitted, Israel did not have the practice of destroying it, but to trim part of it, ad shelo ya'akev achila u'shtiya, so that it doesn't hinder eating and drinking. Ha'avarat se'ar mish'ar haguf, removing hair from the rest of the body. Kegon bet hashechi u'bet ha'irava, for example, the armpit or the pubic area. Enu asur min Torah, it's not forbidden by Torah law. אלא מדברי סופרים, rather by rabbinic law it's forbidden. ומעבירו מכין אותו מכת מרדות. And one who does this is punished by the rabbinic punishment of stripes of rebelliousness. במדברים אמורים, in which case are we talking? במקום שאין מעבירין אותו אלא נשים. This prohibition, rabbinic prohibition, is only effective in those places where only women remove their armpit or pubic hair. כדי שלא יתקן עצמו תיקון נשים, so that he doesn't arrange himself like a woman does. אבל במקום שמעבירין השיער האנשים, but in those places where men also have the practice of removing these hairs, אם העביר אין מכין אותו. If he did remove it, he's not punished. ומותר להעביר שאר איברים במספריים בכל מקום, and it's always permitted to remove hair and of the rest of the limbs using scissors wherever you may be. לא תעדי אישה עדי איש. A woman shall not adorn herself with the adornment of a man. כגון שתשים בראשה מצנפת או כובע. For example, if she puts on her head a turban or a man's hat. או שתלבוש שריון וכיוצא בו, or wear armor and stuff like that. או שתגלח ראשה כאיש, or shaving her head in the manner of a man. Similarly, ולא יעדי איש עדי אישה. A man shall not adorn himself like a woman. כגון שילבוש בגדי צבעונים וחלס זהב. For example, wearing colored garments and gold jewelry. במקום שאין לובשין אותן הכלים ואין משימין אותו החלי אלא הנשים. In those places where only women dress in those sorts of clothes or wear that sort of jewelry. And the important point of this, hakol keminhag medina, all follows whatever the common practice of the place is. Ish she'ada ade isha, a man who adorned himself with the adornment of a woman, v'isha she'ada adat ade ish, and likewise a woman who adorned herself with the adornment of a man, lokin. Their punishment is the biblical flogging. Hamileket se'arot levanot mitoch hashharot, a man who plucks the white hairs amongst his black hairs. Merosho o mizkano, from his head or his beard. Mishi yelaket se'ara hat, once he's plucked even one hair. Loke mipnei she'ada ade isha. He receives lashes because he adorned himself the adornment of a woman. Likewise, if he dyed his hair black, once he's dyed even one hair, he receives lashes. Tumtum androgynous eno otef keisha, and tumtum and an androgynous, which we explained what they are before, do not wrap themselves like a woman, and do not shave their head like a man, but if he did so, does not receive lashes for having done that. Tattoo writing, which is spoken of in the Torah, it's that one scratches his flesh and fills the place of the scratch with kohl, K-O-H-L, not coal that you dig from the ground, or ink or other dyes that mark. It was the practice of the nations who marked themselves for their idolatry. Kilomar shehu eved machur lah umursham la'avodata, meaning that he's a sold servant to that idol and is marked for its service. Ume'et shirshom behad midvarim haroshmim ahar sheyisrot. And once he marks with one of the marking substances after having scratched his skin, be'ez mekom minaguf, in any place on his body, ben ish ben isha loke, whether he's a man or a woman, his punishment is lashes. Katav v'lo rasham b'tzeva. If he scratched something but didn't fill it with an ink, a paint. O sherasham b'tzeva v'lo katav b'srita. Or he marked himself with paint, with a dye, and didn't write anything with scratching. In this case, he's patur. He's exempt from punishment. Ad sheyichtov v'ka'aka shene'emar. Until he's only punished once he's both scratched his skin and filled it with ink, as it says, uchetovet ka'aka, the writing of the tattoo. B'midvarim amurim, which case is considered? Bechotev, in the one who is writing is the one who's punished. Aval zeshech ktavo b'vsaro b'ki'ak lebo, but the one whose flesh was written on and was tattooed, enu hayav ela im se'ah. He's not punished unless he helped the person do the tattooing, so that he performs an act for which he could be punished. But if he did nothing, he does not receive lashes. One who makes a cut on himself for the dead. Loke. His punishment is again flogging. Shneimar, as the verse says, "V'seret lanefesh lo titnu biv'scharchem," that you shall not make a cut in your soul, a cut in your flesh for a soul. Ehad Yisrael v'ehad kohen, whether the person is a common Jew or a priest, this applies. Sarat srita ahat al hamisha metim, if he made one cut for 5 dead. Or hamesh sritot al metahad, or 5 cuts for 1 dead. Loke hamesh, his punishment is 5-fold. V'hu shehitru bo al kol ahat ve'achad. But this is only in the case that he was warned for each one of his transgressions. Gdida v'srita achati. Gashing and cutting are considered the same thing. And just as the nations would cut in their flesh for their dead because of grief, so too they would wound themselves for idolatry. As the verse says, they gashed themselves according to their custom. This also was forbidden by Torah. As the verse says, Lo titgodedu, you shall not cut yourselves. Ela sha'alamet, but with respect to the dead, ben sarat biado, ben sarat bechli loke. It doesn't matter whether he cut with his own hand or with a tool, he's punished. La'avodah zara bechli hayav malkut biado patur. But for idolatry, if he used an implement to cut himself, then he is liable for lashes. But if not, if he did it by hand, then he is exempt from punishment. Uvichlal azharazo, and included in this warning, shelo yihu shnei batei dinim ba'ira hat, ze noheg b'minhag, v'ze noheg b'minhag acher. There should not be 2 different courts in one city, one following one custom and the other following another custom. For this causes great disputes. And it says, Lo titgodidu, you shall not cut yourselves. But this is a play on words because it's the word gedud or group is included. You should not break yourselves into groups. Lo te'asu agudot agudot. You shall not make yourselves into separate groups. Hakoreach korha alamet, someone who makes a bald spot on his head for the dead. Loke, again, punished by flogging. Shneimar, the verse says, Velo tasimu korha ben einechem lemet. You shall not make a bald spot between your eyes for the dead. Ehad Yisrael v'ehad kohen shekarach alamet. Whether a person is an Israelite or a priest who made a baldness on their dead, enu loke ele achat. He only receives one punishment. Hakorech arba al O chamesh korhot al metehad, one who makes 4 or 5 bald spots for one dead person, loke keminyan hakorhot. He's given stripes according to his punishment is according to the number of bald spots. Behu shehitrubo al kol korha v'korcha. But this only applies if he was warned for each and every bald spot he made. Ahad koreach biado o besam. It doesn't make a difference whether one made the bald spot by tearing out his hair manually or using some kind of a chemical. Hitbil hamesh etzba'otav basam. If he dunked his 5 fingers in some kind of a depilatory solution. V'niham b'hamesh mekomot berosh bevat achat. And he put them on 5 different spots of his head at one time. Ho'il v'karah hamesh korhot. Since, after all, he made 5 bald spots. Afal pi shehi hatra'a achat. Even though it was only one warning. Lokeh hamesh. He receives 5 lashes. 5 sets of lashes. Share kulan ba'in ka'ahad, for all of them occur at the same time. V'hayav al kol harosh keben ha'inaim. And it's not just between the eyes that he's warned, but the entire head. Shne'emar, as it says, lo yikrehu korha berosham. They shall not make a baldness on their head. Kama she'ura korha, how large is the bald spot in order to generate the punishment? Kedei sheyira'eh merosho kegris panui belo se'ar. So that there appears on his head like a groat of space without hair. Hakoreach rosho, one who makes his head bald, or soret bebsaro, or cuts his flesh. If he does either of these, al beito shenafal, for his house which fell, v'al sfinato shetava'a b'yam, or his ship that sank in the sea. For these cases, patur, he's exempt from punishment. Be'enu loke ela al hamet bilvad. He's only punished for doing these over a dead person. O hasoret la'avodah zarah, or for an idolatry. Hakoreach korha berosh shel havero, one who makes a bald spot in his fellow's head. Vasoret srita bivsar havero, or cuts the flesh of his fellow. V'akotev ktovet ka'aka bivsaro shel havero, or who writes a tattoo on the flesh of his fellow. V'ayah havero misayeh, and his fellow assisted. Bizman sheshnehem mizidim, when both of them are doing this in an intentional manner. Shnehem lokin, both of them receive lashes. Ehad shogeg ve'ehad mizid, if one of them did it by accident or unintentionally, and the other one did it intentionally. Hamizid mishnehem loke, the one who did it intentionally receives the lashes. Ve'ashogeg patur, and the one who did it accidentally is exempt.